We're now live, Chair.
Thank you very much. Evening all. Sorry about that. Technical problems. We're not short of those, are we? Right. The meeting tonight, there's only two on it, two subjects on it, and they're both, one's about crime and one's about environmental blight. So don't get too depressed, will you, by the time throughout the evening. Kirsty, any substitutes nominated, please, for this evening?
Hi, Chair. Councillor B. Smith has sent his apologies, and we do have Councillor Rivron substituting on his behalf. Right.
Now, as we're sitting as the Crime and Disorder Committee, we should have Councillors Courtney and Whittaker, so I think we need to note their apologies, do we really, for sake of form, because they will be here normally.
Councillor Courtney, I will note her apologies because she's actually off at the moment, but I've not received apologies from Councillor Whittaker.
Haven't you? I thought, yeah, sorry. No. I've been misinformed then. Okay.
Maybe there has, but I've just not seen that, Chair. Yeah. So I will look at that in the background and record.
Yeah. Okay. Right. Right. Members' interests. Any need to declare any disposable pecuniary interests? Anybody? No. The public can listen if they want to, but that's entirely up to them. It's an open meeting. Minutes. Have you submitted the minutes, Kirsty? Has everybody got some from the last meeting on the 9th?
Yeah, we've had some minutes through today.
You've had them, right. Is everybody happy with them?
Yeah, I'll agree then, Chair.
Yeah, okay. Anybody second, please? Thank you, David. Right, well, we'll go into the because it's the Police and Crime Commission meeting as well. We're going to start with the Community Safety Partnership. I don't know who's leading on this, please. Derek, thank you. Short straw. Thanks, Derek. Can you just let me know before we start? You've got a kind of an action plan in here for consultation period, and is this something to do with the mayor, or is this something separate? Because I think we're waiting a plan from the mayor, aren't we? So is this a separate thing, or is this eternal?
Yeah, so thank you, Chair. Yeah, this is actually connected to the mayor and the police and crime plan that the mayor is actually developing now that she's actually been elected to that position. So we find ourselves in a position where we're doing our own strategic assessment. However, at the same time, we're also seeing that West Yorkshire is now developing their own police and crime plan. And the sensible approach is to join the two together. So consultation will be out very shortly, if it isn't already, around the police and crime plan. And that consultation will also feed into our local process as well. Okay,
well, I'm a great believer in joined up, so that's great. Right, well, do you want to just run through the basics, Derek, please, and highlight anything you think we should be aware of?
Okay, so thank you again, Chair. For those who don't know me, Derek Ben, Calderdale's Community Safety Partnership Manager. The Community Safety Partnership is our crime and disorder function within Calderdale. It's a statutory responsibility for partners to work together to tackle crime and disorder. One of the requirements under the Act is for us to produce a strategic assessment. I don't think I need to apologise for the fact that we've been in unprecedented times, and as a result, our strategic assessment has been delayed. However, we are fulfilling our function and we're undertaking that work now, given that we're now in a different place regarding the pandemic. That, as I said earlier, lines itself really nicely with what's happening through the Mayor's office, the development of the police and crime plan at the West Yorkshire level. So this is a really good opportunity to align those plans and make sure that we've got collaboration and one another support each other mutually. So in some ways, the timing of it isn't ideal in terms of we've been delayed, but out of that comes the benefit of now realigning alongside the West Yorkshire developing plan. So what you will see is that there are some main themes already been identified. It's all in the report. So what we would like, Chair, is really an endorsement from this committee as the Crime and Disorder Committee to actually come back to yourselves in the end or towards the end of the financial year and actually deliver what would then be a presentation around our strategic assessment. However, you can see that there are opportunities for members and for the community to be part of that process and feed in any concerns, comments, etc. So I think that's all I probably need to say. Yeah.
Open to questions, really, from anybody. I'm not using chat. You'll have to put your hands up. Audrey.
Hi, thanks, Derek. And just a couple of things. Have you picked up any trends from the Safer, Cleaner, Greener meetings that have been going ahead? Because they've been carrying on throughout the last year, so they would give you a bit of indication already to see if there's any trends. Also, has there been any major changes? Because it's a long time since the last one was done. And also, there's been something in the news recently about serious crime possibly decreasing, but antisocial behaviour increasing. I mean, we think that's probably quite obviously as a result of cuts and reduction in a lot of services, but I just wondered if we will be sort of recognising that as well.
Thank you, Councillor. If I could take your first point first, if that's okay. Absolutely. One of the things about the strategic assessment and also the direction that the Mayor and Deputy Mayor are wanting to go with regarding the police and crime plan is for that community localism and to make sure that priorities are heard. So one of the things that we are doing, we've already sent a pro forma out to all our Safer, Cleaner, Greener meetings, and we've asked for feedback around what's the key issues that are actually taking place within your localities, what's being brought to your attention, what do we need to address. So we are absolutely going down to that level without, as you say, ignoring some of the issues around the serious crime. There's certain policing requirements that have to exist around, for example, counter-terrorism, serious organised crime. They will obviously be part of the plan, but the whole idea is to mirror actually what's happening in local communities, make sure that we've got a plan that fits both the strategic policing requirements and the police and crime requirements, as well as what is happening locally in our areas. Because I can imagine that the issues being experienced in one Safer, Cleaner, Greener area, say, for example, the Lower Valley, may be totally different to what's being experienced in North and East, say, Halifax. So we're trying to capture that. And I'm really pleased that the person who's doing a lot of the work at a West Yorkshire level is somebody who's very familiar to Calderdale and has actually worked with us on the strategic assessment. So without saying too much, I've really got a real confidence that we're going to be quite well aligned in terms of what the final product's going to be.
Okay, thank you, David. Helen, did you have your hand up?
I did. I know I'm a guest on this committee, but although I wasn't, obviously there's been a lot of policy recently about violence against women and girls, a tragic case of Sarah Everett and so on. The work we've done previously on domestic violence has suggested, I know statistics are collated differently, that we had a high number of repeat offenders, and I just wanted to know how that was going to be reflected in the strategic plan.
Can you answer that, Derek? Or?
Yes, if I could. So also at the same time as the police and crime plan and also our local strategic assessment, there is a needs assessment being undertaken around domestic abuse. And that, again, is an opportunity to ensure that we're all joined up in terms of what the strategy is. But it's all right doing a needs assessment, but what is really important is actually what do we do with that needs assessment? So in terms of our response to the assessment is going to be really critical. violence against women and girls is obviously incredibly important and is actually at a very critical stage. So there is a West Yorkshire response being developed around that. And again, that is an ideal time for us to join it in to our strategic assessment and make sure that our approach in Calderdale also resonates alongside the approach that's taking place in West Yorkshire. So we've got a community safety partnership meeting next Thursday that will be discussed at the community safety partnership, because what we must do is make sure we're all joined up in terms of our response around violence against women and girls. And in particular, there is a funding stream that we've bid into and we've been successful, which is called Safer Streets. And within that Safer Streets, there will be work around some of our open spaces in terms of better lighting, CCTV and frontline services being visible in those locations. But also, and this is for me is really, really important, there's going to be an education programme that will challenge people's views around how some members of society view women and girls.
Thank you, Derek. I've got Guy Beach, then Paul Bellinger, please. Guy.
Yeah, thanks, Peter. I'd just like to, on the subject of local security and local policing in North Halifax, I would just like to congratulate the police on the raids they've done over the last 2 or 3 days in retrieving stolen motorcycles and quad bikes that various offenders have been using to race up and down various roads and generally disrupt the well-being and the feeling of safety of local residents. So I'd just like to say, yes, I agree. They are looking at local things. The police did this because of what they'd heard from our recent local ward meetings in North Halifax. So I would just like to say all praise to them in doing something and catching some of these offenders. Thank you.
Thank you. Something positive. That's marvellous.
Positive, yeah.
Paul?
Sorry, thank you, Chair. Yeah, it's funny, the Safer Streets, I'm pleased to hear about this, Derek. But to add to that, it's funny, I was looking at something today that China are actually doing, and they're actually having female-only parking spaces closer to various stores. So, for females or vulnerable people, they can park closer to where they need to go, that's under better lighting, under CCTV. I know that's in China, but I wonder if it's something that we in Calderdale might be able to adopt in some places and be the first authority maybe in this country to, I don't know if any other authorities are doing it, but at least we could probably spearhead something like that and trial it in some places. For those people feeling vulnerable, they'll feel a bit safer if they're closer.
A very interesting point, that, Paul. Do you want to adopt any more Chinese policing tactics? Particular one, just so we know where we stand. Audrey.
Yeah, just on the points around making, addressing violence against women. We know that most of the crimes are committed by people that the women know. We know that they're mostly domestic. So I'm just wondering where the research has come and who you've been consulting with about lighting up parks and making parks safer. Because really, I wouldn't walk through a park if it had a blooming, football pitch lighting on it at night on my own. So, and I think many women, probably many young men feel the same. So I don't think lighting in parks is the sole answer. And I think we need to be looking much more at making sure perpetrators, if they're from the home, that it's properly investigated and police are taking proper action when they need to.
Chair, would you like me to respond?
Yeah, please if you could.
Yeah. Councillor Smith, that's music to my ears. The biggest risk is still in the home for women and girls. So that's something that we shouldn't lose. The risk factors, as we know, domestic abuse, violent crime. The last analysis we had showed that approximately 35% of our violence was in homes, in other words, domestic related. So I think that's not certainly lost on officers. We had no decision making or choice around how the funding was given to us. It was simply, do you want to take advantage of this? Do you want to be part of a West Yorkshire approach for funding? It came from the Home Office. So again, we're not going to say no, but I absolutely accept your point there that we still, no amount of lighting and CCTV should take away that, what I call that decision, that dynamic decision making as to whether some place is safe to walk through or not. So I totally take on board your point, and I agree around the real threat still remains in the home.
Thank you.
Thanks, Derek.
Can I ask you just a question? You've got from October on this timescales, you've got 3.4 engagement with existing problem-solving groups. Can you be more specific, Derek, about who they are?
Yes, so underneath the Community Safety Partnership, we have a number of delivery groups. So Safer Cleaner Greeners, the 5 Safer Cleaner Greeners we have in Calderdale, because we have Halifax Town Centre as one specific Safer Cleaner Greener, are what we call our problem-solving groups. We also have thematic groups, such as our Hate Crime Partnership. We also have the Domestic Abuse Strategic Board. So we have a number of thematic and locality-based problem-solving groups, which many of the members on here have actually got an influence or certainly involvement in. So that's our way of saying, in a succinct way, that we're going to engage with all the professionals, volunteers, members and residents who are part of that bigger response that sits underneath the Community Safety Partnership.
Okay, thank you, Dave, for that. Anybody got more questions, please? Can't see anybody. No. Well, thanks very much for that. And obviously we'll look forward to seeing this plan when it's finished. I mean, I know it's something that's out of your hands, but it'd be nice to see what's going to be happening. I mean, particularly about just general things like police numbers and allocations and where they're going to be and what the priorities are going to be. So, yeah. Thank you very much indeed. Thanks all. If we can move on now, please, to another emotive subject, fly tipping. Andrew, are you in on this? Is Andrew there?
Yeah, I can just say a few words, Chair, if you want.
We don't
I must give credit.
Were you proposing to do it, or?
Yeah. No, that's fine. I'll just say a brief introduction. Derek's got probably more of the detail to deal with the questions, but essentially, this is a report updating you on what is a big issue in Calderdale and unfortunately a growing issue, and that's fly tipping and wider environmental blight, encompassing everything from excess waste where people just leave bags of waste out on the streets, through to the more sort of commercial type fly tipping, through to the things where there's just a few odd items thrown over a field wall or something. It's a big issue for us, and not only because it affects Calderdale as a place. Environmental blight makes it a less attractive place for people to live in their neighbourhoods, for people to come and work, and importantly for people to visit. So it's absolutely central to the council's aspirations that we deal with environmental blight as best we can. But the other reason why it's also important, I think, is probably a selfish one for many of us around this table, and it's that issues around environmental blight do clog up many of our mailboxes, whether we've been members or officers of the council. So I think we've all got an interest in making sure we really get a grip on the issue. So what we wanted to do this evening was basically just to explain what we're doing about it. And I think many of you are familiar with the approach that we use, which we characterise as the 3 E's: education, engagement, and if necessary, we then move to robust enforcement action. But we also wanted to bring you up to date with some specific local innovations, which is essentially an online reporting process for fly tipping and a far more, I think, streamlined operational response, which allows us to deal more quickly with things like removing the items, but also to taking necessary enforcement action. I know Ian Hughes is is on this call, and I'm sure he won't mind me saying, but sometimes legal processes can take a very long time. So we've brought into play some other tools that we have in our box to be able to enforce with the ultimate objective. And the last thing I'll say on it, this is all about behaviour change. You know, we'd prefer to be out of business in terms of having to deal with environmental blight. If it didn't happen, if people didn't fly tip, if they didn't just chuck things on the streets that shouldn't be there, we wouldn't have to deal with it. So it's all about changing people's behaviour, using that approach of engaging with them, educating them as to why it's a bad thing to do it. But for those people who don't respond positively to that sort of approach, we have to make sure that we've got robust enforcement tools at our disposal. So I'll leave it at that, Chair. There's quite a bit more information in the report. And as I say, either myself or Derek will be happy to pick up any detailed questions from members.
Right, no, that's fine. Derek, do you want to say anything, or should I just pass straight to questions? Because I'm sure you're going to get a load. So
I'm quite happy to go to questions.
Yeah, I thought you might be. Yeah. So, who's first? Yes. Paul, did you go on your little trip picking up litter? Or,
I did, Chair, this morning, and hence the reason why I've probably got a lot to say this evening. So it was.
Who did you go with?
Steph Clark came with us as another member,
right?
But out with one of the wardens and an enforcement officer. So it was quite an enlightening morning, really interesting. And you know, to look at various parts of Calderdale as well, and it's really impressive at the amount of work that the officers do. But obviously, I think we picked up on a few things where we feel there might be some changes or suggestions, really, to how we as members can maybe support some improvements to it. And I think one of the things that you mentioned anyway, one of the easies is education, and it's informing people really the consequences of not disposing of the litter appropriately or the bulky waste appropriately, and letting them know that obviously they're accountable as well if they're paying somebody to dispose of it and they go and dump it on some street corner. And I think one of the things we could possibly do here is work maybe with Suez. And when Suez actually put out the calendar every year to every household that says this is when your waste is going to be collected, maybe on the opposite side, this is how you can dispose of your bulky waste. This is what could happen if you dispose of it incorrectly. So people then have got that bit of education there. That's people tend to keep that piece of paper all year round to know when the recycling is going to be collected. So it's something there that's basically in the face of everybody all the time. What else have I got here?
May come back to a question later if you want to.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I think I was going to ask about the van. Obviously, that van's really it's worth its weight in gold, Eric. And I'm just wondering when that might be due for an upgrade to a possible electric or hybrid. But
Helen,
it's certainly done some miles as that. Anything else? I'll come back, Chair.
All right, you get 2 bites of the cherry or 2 or 3 if you want. Helen.
Hang on, sorry, I'm having a few technical problems. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, but you're like a robotic, as it were, to look at, as it were. But as long as you can hear, that's all right.
Yeah, I'm having a few technical problems. I'm not sure. Yeah, I think one thing I find the biggest problem, this might be more North Halifax general issue, where you have land which is a multiple ownership. And certainly, like where you've had larger social housing be council ownership, some of it might be together housing, some of it might be a housing association, somebody might have been sold on to goodness knows who. And getting people to sort of working together. Now, I entirely see as council taxpayers, we shouldn't be making up the failings of irresponsible landowners. But on the other hand, in terms of getting rid of environmental blight, clearly requires all the partners to working together. No easy answers, but would like some comments on where we've got those issues of sort of land and multi-ownership, how we can respond.
Thank you. Does that require an answer, Helen, specifically, or was it a comment? Or
I know there's no easy answers, but I think it's something I've raised. Yeah, I would like to have a comment, but I know there's not going to be a quick or easy.
no, it's all right. Who wants to? You want a shot at that, Derek? Or Andrew, do you want to-
I'm happy to just have a bit of a shot first, and I'm sure Derek will come in. I think the simple answer to your question, Councillor Rivron, is that it does make it more complicated when land is in multiple ownership for the sort of engagement with the landowners, but the approach should be the same. And the approach that we are trying to develop with some success is that if there is fly tipping on land that is not purely in council ownership, what we will do is, if that is of a sufficient size for us to be able to deal with, i.e. not on an industrial scale of 6,000 tyres or something like that, but if it is something that we can deal with and we can deal with safely, so it's not hazardous material or anything like that, what we will do is we will remove it. If it's in a location where people are going to see it, which I think, I know the sort of areas that you're talking about, Councillor Rivron, and they are in areas where people see it and it drags down neighbourhoods and all that sort of thing. So what we will do is we will go and move that. We will then write to the owners of the land, so whether that be a housing association or whether it be a private owner, and we will say, we've removed these items, we will do this once. The next time this happens, and you may want to consider ways that you might be able to prevent it recurring, for example, what we call target hardening, whether that be putting some fencing up or whatever, not appropriate for every site, but in some, it's at least a minute's consideration. And next time we will give you a time scale to have it removed, but if it is not removed within that time scale, and I'm talking this being days, not months, we will give you days to remove it. And if it is not removed, we will remove it once more, but we will bill you for that. We will do what's called the works in default type approach. And that's how we're trying to deal with stuff. So we get it off the streets quickly, but we also square that circle, as you say, Councillor Rivron, that we're not spending council tax money on clearing up sites that are in private ownership. It's a difficult circle to square, but we think the approach we've got at the moment is a reasonable one. And I think you're aware of a piece of land in Lee Mount where we've recently taken exactly that type of approach. But Derek may wish to just add a bit more detail in terms of that answer.
I think you've summed it up nicely there, Andrew. I think the main thing to say is every case has to be looked on its own merits, but it's good to have a default position, which is what we've got, which is Andrew has articulated. But as I say, we'll look at every case on its merits, and what we do have, and it's mentioned in the report, is we have it's now fortnightly environmental blight accountability meeting where I sit with all the other relevant services who do all the work, as we call this system approach to engagement, cleaning up, enforcement, and we actually scrutinise our activities. So we're testing out in real time, how are we dealing with this? Is it working? Is it efficient? Is it effective? And actually problem solve some of the critical issues. So the point that Andrew's raised, he's talked about a grassed area that's no longer in council ownership, belongs to somebody else. We've taken action there. So we do a bit of problem solving as well. But just to give you some sort of assurance that we really are taking this quite seriously in terms of the level of scrutiny around how our system approach is working. And for me, the online reporting is proving to be absolutely worth its weight in gold. For once now, we've actually got all our reports coming through in a consistent way and importantly going onto one system. That sounds like it shouldn't be too much to ask, but I do know, and Councillor Caffrey will support me on this, that Scrutiny has got involved in fly tipping and made many recommendations in the past. So at long last, we've actually achieved one of those targets, which is to have a one system approach to fly tipping and what I call waste nuisance.
Yeah. Thanks for that. And it took some putting together, did that, but I think that process, if it does implement it, will work. Or well, it won't solve it, but it'll work. Regan, I can't see you, but you're there somewhere.
Hi there, yeah, international man of mystery again, I'm afraid. Just a very quick question for Andrew and Derek Potsley. What's the current situation with mobile CCTV? We had an email conversation, Andrew, you and I, a few months back about possible locations in the Rastrick ward for it. I'm just wondering if it's being rolled out successfully.
I'll let Derek answer that, because I know it's something that we are exploring further. We do have some mobile CCTV capability at the moment, but one of the things that we are looking at is whether we can increase that, because we are getting, there are a lot, as I said at the start of the meeting, this is a growing problem, and there are an increasing number of sites where, you know, we think they may benefit from that type of approach, but we don't quite have the capacity or the number of cameras to do that. But I'm sure Derek can fill in a bit further.
Yeah, thank you. We've got a two-tiered approach to cameras. So each of the safer, cleaner, greeners, because who knows to the issues in your area than the safer, cleaner, greener, with members sat around the table talking to local officers. They have a deployable camera which they can use. This is what you would call those proper looking cameras, you know, with a pivot, zoom and tilt. So they have a camera which you can deploy, and that could be around antisocial behaviour, fly tipping, anything. That is your decision as to how you deploy that. What Andrew's also talking about is some of the smaller cameras. That technology has really stepped up in the last couple of years. We've been very loath to take some of these cameras on because the images that they produce at night, where there's issues around identification or even picking out registration numbers, has been difficult, but the cameras now are fantastic. The battery lives are great. But I think Councillor Bellinger might mention this, or Councillor Clark is, but there was one of the locations that we were going to go to today, and actually that camera's been stolen. You know, which for me shows in some ways, in a positive, it's in the right place, isn't it? Why would somebody steal a camera? Well, it's because there's obviously collected some evidence as to an offending nature. So we then need to look at what's our covert capability, and that's governed by a lot of different rules, which I'll probably not the best time to go into now. But so we have a two-tiered approach. We have smaller cameras. Yes, capacity is an issue for us. We would love to have more resources, particularly given the number of reports that we're receiving. But we also have that camera that's been allocated to each safer, cleaner, greener, where you can make a decision on. And the footage from that camera is linked in real time to our community safety wardens. So it's monitored 24/7 and we can respond. So I'm not sure, Councillor, does that answer your question?
It does, thank you. As ever, it's about resources, but yeah, thank you for that.
Can I just ask, some of these cameras, I guess, put in hotspots, are they? Do they act as more of a deterrent, or are they more, have we actually got anybody through a camera, or is it more putting people off from doing it in the first place?
Yes, so we've a bit of probably more the deterrent, because one of the things that we have to do is we have to tell people that there is CCTV in the area. So even though these are small cameras and they might be difficult to see, actually we still need to tell people that CCTV is operating in the area. If we don't, we will fall foul of the surveillance commissioner, and we could potentially find ourselves in a really difficult situation. So we need to broadcast the fact that actually we've got cameras in that location. So that is a deterrent. One of the cameras that has been stolen from Old Lane. We will be replacing that very quickly, but we've seen a significant reduction in what's happened at Old Lane as a result of cameras that have been put into that area. So there's no doubt it works, but we have also had 2 successful enforcement outcomes from cameras, which have caught people absolutely red-handed fly tipping. So there's been a positive already there, but I would say that that's going to be exception rather than the rule. It really is deterrent. Where we've got real evidence that we might want to look at in a targeted approach, i.e. on an individual or a particular site, then as I say, that's governed by particular type controls around what we call a RIPA process, where we have to go to court and apply for a warrant to be able to do that.
Okay, thanks for that. Guy Beach, followed by Dave Young. Guy, you still? I can't see.
Yeah,
you.
thank you. Just
Yeah.
going back a bit, which you may regard as a point of detail about fly tipping and going after the landowners where necessary. I myself am a tenant farmer on a fairly small farm. So if there was a repeated problem, which we don't have, would you go after the actual landowner or the tenant farmer? I'm just curious to know what your priorities would be.
Andrew, would you like me to take that?
I certainly would, Derek. I like to leave the difficult questions to you.
If you recall, I said we would look at each case on its merits because
Yes.
one size doesn't always fit all. And I'm particularly mindful, and Andrew will support me on this, we don't want to unintentionally cause distress to somebody who might not be in a position to deal with that issue. So if you're being particularly targeted, then for me, you're a victim. What we're talking about here is people who buy pieces of land, and there are many examples of this across Calderdale, who then buy land, sit on it, don't develop it or wait for an opportunity, but in the meantime take no responsibility to look after that land. So those are the ones that Andrew is particularly focusing our attention on. And I think you'd all agree in those circumstances, landowners do need to take responsibility, but we will always engage with them first, but it won't be 5 or 6 attempts to engage. It'll be one made very clear about the consequences, but definitely people such as yourself who are in different circumstances, we would look at that on a case-by-case basis.
So basically the answer is for, in the case of a tenant farmer, they need to engage with the council on matters like that. Okay.
Yeah, thanks very much for responding. Dave Young, I know you're there somewhere. Yeah. No, there.
Thank you, Peter. I've got 2 questions really. What is the percentage increase on fly tipping over the last 5 years? And do you have a breakdown of ward by ward of the fly tipping reports? If Derek or Andrew want to answer that. Thank you.
The answer is, Councillor Young, is no, I can't give you an accurate figure. And that's been one of the issues. We haven't had a consistent system approach to fly tipping. However, as you can see now in the report by the dashboard that I produced at the end, you can see now how the work is flowing through the services. That is something that we can break down at ward level. I think you're also aware, or you may be aware, that the online reporting, you can actually see a map and you can point out on the map where the issues are. And the positive about that is our officers, when they go out and about, can access that map and can actually see what's happening. And it's part of a bigger vision whereby an officer, so for example, when Councillor Bellinger and Councillor Clark were out with officers today, they have handheld devices, and when this system is fully operational, because we're in the very early stages, they will be able to see on their handheld devices a map of the area they're going into, so they'll be able to identify where ASB has been reported, where fly tipping has been reported, where there's a request for bulky waste, where there's planning enforcement issues. So we're looking to build that rich picture up. So yes, I could find you some figures and I could give you a trend, that how accurate that is, I have to say, I'm not confident. What I can show you is figures that we've got and we've collected since the enforcement review, and I can show you how fly tipping has increased quite significantly, along with noise, over a 2-year period. I can also show you the activity in terms of enforcement, which I have to say, and you probably tell by my face, I'm quite proud of the work we've done on enforcement. But I do want to say that there is an headline figure. Even though we take very, very positive action, oh, thank you for this. Even though we take very, very positive action, so you can see, sorry, on the screen, I'm hoping you can see that there's a number of enforcement tools that we've been able to use from a community protection warning all the way through to a court prosecution. At the moment, we have 10 cases pending prosecution. So they're sat with officers and legal officers talking through, actually, do we have enough evidence? Can we seek a prosecution? And I have to say that that's looking very positive. So you can see that we are actually taking some really positive action. But the worrying thing for me is, if you wouldn't mind, please, I'm not sure if it's Mike or Kirsty.
Me, Derek.
Is it? Could you scroll down to the bottom?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, one of the things that really is quite still worrying, and this shows you the complexity of it, is you see that actually, when you look at of all the reports that have made since we went live with the online reporting, which I believe is around about 1,600, my screen's just blocked at the moment, only 3% of those reports are actually producing evidence that we can deal with. But you can see from this that when we do get the evidence, we have a 70-odd% success rate in getting an enforcement outcome. So that says to me, we've got a huge work to do here around behaviour. And it's not the first time that we've mentioned behaviour on this report. This is akin to seatbelt compliance, drink driving. We need to change behaviour whereby people, it is not acceptable to go and tip your rubbish somewhere else. Take responsibility, because we're not going to enforce our way out of this problem. We actually need to educate and actually ensure that people understand that they have a responsibility. There will always be your professional fly tippers, Ensign 10 cases that are going through to court. We will always take action. But what I can show you, and I can break this down, and it will be taken to our Safer Cleaner Marina meetings, is now a rich picture of evidence that justifies what we're doing and why we're doing it. So I hope that helps, Councillor Young, but I'm sorry, I'm not sure if I could really give you any confidence around the figures that would have been produced 2 or 3 years ago.
Thank you for that, Andrew. I've got two more questions, but before I do that, while we're on the figures, can I just ask you about these PCNs? FPNs. Do they actually, have we got a record of how many of those get paid, or are they challenged, or how much are they normally? How much is the fine under an FPN?
Yeah, so Councillor Catherine, the fines are set by the Home Office guidance, so they tend to give you an upper level and a lower level. Right. So therefore, the council has discretion as to whether it goes for the upper tariff or the lower tariff. It's fair to say, because within those FPN figures, there will be different offences. So every offence carries a different tariff. Right. So, for example, I would suggest that Calderdale usually follows the recommendations set by the Home Office around tariffs. Obviously, that could be changed through members' decisions. And I do know that in certain other local authorities, they've gone really big on stepping up the level of fines. That then brings issues around recovery of those fines. Yes, I think our recovery rate could be a lot better. That's not because we shy away from recovery. It's just that the process to actually get recovery is quite intensive. We certainly don't write off. I can reassure you, we don't write anything off without justification.
No, I accept that. And I mean, you've got to draw the line somewhere between, what's cost effective and what isn't. Who gets the DOS? The government get it, or do we get it?
It comes back to us.
Oh, we get it, right. So there is some incentive there to enforce it. Right, thank you.
Yeah, I'd probably have to say, and without looking at the figures, and I'm sure if somebody like Nigel was here or anything, I think the actual cost that we bring back in does not balance off the actual cost of us taking action. So I don't think it's anything that could be suggested that it's going to bring any income in, etc. That's not the purpose of it. As I'm sure that's not what you're all pointing to, but the cost recovery side of it will be insignificant to the officer time involved in actually getting the enforcement. The main thing is making people aware of the consequences to their behaviour.
Well, yeah, that's what I meant. I mean, even though it might be cost effective, it sends a message out, doesn't it? But it's where you draw the line, how much you spend and how much you don't.
Yeah, and what I will always say is that we will always look to prosecute a fly tipper because it is by definition a very serious offence, and that's why we'll always look to take a prosecution. Where we use a fixed penalty ticket notice is where we might not quite have the evidence, or actually we're dealing with, on a case-by-case basis, a different scenario. So, for example, Councillor Bellinger mentioned that not always do people understand that they've got a duty of care to make sure that their bulky waste gets dealt with correctly by a waste trader. And actually, we've issued fixed penalty tickets for people who fail to undertake their duty of care. That, for me, seems to be quite proportionate, whereas issuing somebody, and I think in the report I've actually identified a recent conviction we had for a serial fly tipper. There is no way we would even consider a fixed penalty ticket in those circumstances.
Thank you. Mohammed, you've got a question, I think.
Yeah, with regards to people leaving or fly tipping on pavements or outside the property, what is the situation? What's the time scale in terms of moving the item, whether it's furniture or other items, waste, bags, etc.? Because in Park we tend to have a lot of this fly tipping on pavements, outside people's houses.
Andrew, do you want me to take that one again?
Somebody got some music going. I can't. Can you hear interference, or is it just me? No.
No.
I think just quickly, Derek, before you come in on the detail. I think the first thing that we have to do with that is check whether it's a weight in a bulky waste collection, because we have had instances in the past where there have been, let's say, miscommunication, and either we've ended up picking something up that's a bulky waste collection, or we've assumed it's a bulky waste collection and it isn't a bulky waste collection. The reason for that is that each bulky waste collection costs us, I'm trying to remember the figure, I think we paid Suez £18.50 or something like that. Now, if they go out to a bulky waste collection and they find that the bulky waste has already been taken away from the council, they don't give us our £18.50 back. So it's in our financial interest to make sure that we don't get that sort of confusion. So that's the first thing we'll do. But Derek can probably then pick up on how we'd respond sort of operationally.
So, first of all, we don't always get these issues reported to us, and yes, officers sometimes witness it. So there is still a huge degree of under-reporting. So we have to go where the reports tell us, not that we ignore what we come across on the streets, but if we see waste outside someone's house, that is a starter for 10, because we can sometimes actually say that it's that house that's causing the issues. We will engage with that person, and that's done by mainly our neighbourhood officers, our community safety ward, our wardens in neighbourhoods. They'll go and engage with the individual and they'll ask them to move it, and they'll say, why did you do it in the first place? So if that's the engagement and education. If that doesn't work, then the issues are escalated to the enforcement team, which sit within my team. And that's when you can see from the figures that just being produced is that actually we will take enforcement action. And normally how we deal with that is we deal with that by way of community protection notice, which is a case of saying, you have a responsibility to do this. If you don't do it, we will take remedial action. We will do it, and we'll either charge you, prosecute you, or serve you with a fixed penalty ticket notice. So the main thing is, please report it. And as Andrew says, we can do our due diligence as to whether it's actually a bulky request. We will then send the right resource, which is our neighbourhood officers, who will engage with those individuals. There are sections of the community who actually do need to be educated around how to deal with waste, etc. And therefore, we don't want to miss that opportunity to change behaviour. So we'll engage. And as you can see again from the dashboard that I produced, you can see a lot of the engagement actually stops the issues and doesn't mean that we go on to enforcement. So the whole idea is about the right resource at the right time. Whereas in the past, I'm afraid, we've probably sent 5 officers to deal with one incident, and we've totally missed what we've actually set out to achieve.
Thank you, Derek. Paul, I think another question.
Thanks, yeah. It was just some points again from this morning. I've got tidy my notes up now so I can read them. CCTV cameras. Obviously, there's some areas where we can't actually put them up on lampposts, and the covert ones have to go in, and it's always difficult. But we noticed some of the hotspots, there's people's windows that overlook some of these hotspots. Is there a possibility to work with residents to say, you know, could we put a camera in your window onto this area that's causing you issues outside your property? Another point this morning as well, I noticed that it's one guy on his own that goes out to collect a lot of this fly tipping, and he's got the whole of Calderdale to himself to sort of like look after. I noticed at times he was struggling with this double mattress on his own, mattresses that have got bodily fluids on them and wet with rain and things like that. You know, is there a possibility there that it can have an extra help with this? And I think with the new reporting system, it's going to be easier to maybe triage as well as to, is this a big item, you can see it, yeah, it's going to be a 2-man job, or this is just a cardboard box that someone's put outside. So I think it does need some help, but I think there's things in place that might help that with the triage system. Publicity, again, I think it's a big thing. We really need to be getting this in the papers. Every time we've had you know, enforcement action and we've won with that, people need to know that we're on the ball as an authority. You know, we will not lie down and take this, you know, easy, all this fly tipping. So yeah, we really need to promote that in the papers and through our communication systems in Calderdale. Another thing as well, how do we compare against other authorities with regards to fly tipping, and our success rate against other authorities as well, costs, financial side. And finally, my first question, what plans are in place, Derek, to change the van? You know, your staff have been talking to me this morning, and I do agree with them.
You'll need Nigel here to take that one, won't you? Yeah.
Yeah, so there's a bit there really to go on, and that's, like I say, through observations this morning, which was really, really helpful. Really happy with it.
Andrew, could I take the simple ones first?
Yep.
In terms of working with residents, absolutely. We have to be very careful though, because the public realm cameras, so even though they are small, they're still classed as public realm, and actually putting a camera in a house, even though you might still be able to see it, is actually surveillance. So, and it's covert. So we need to be very careful, but we'll definitely work with communities. And one of the things that we were very keen to get off the ground prior to COVID coming, and we were talking with 1 or 2 elected members on this, was actually creating almost a fly tipping watch, like a neighbourhood watch, but actually around fly tipping. And this is particularly relevant for, say, maybe the more rural type of areas. So I won't talk about the members I've spoken to, but there were several members who were keen to do that. And obviously the pandemic then for the last 18 months has consumed everybody, hasn't it? In terms of the van, you're absolutely right. We have a challenge. That van has to be out practically 24/7. And no matter how well, how robust you buy a vehicle that is operated 24/7, which that vehicle is liable to mechanical issues. And it comes as no surprise that my officers took an opportunity to raise the resilience of the van. Can I just say, we need to applaud ourselves. There's many local authorities that of the bigger size that don't actually have a 24/7 warden service and a van with a CCTV in it like we do. So I think for me, absolutely, we will continue to look at it. We're looking at how we can move to a more environmental friendly approach around the vehicle. And that's something that we'll constantly look at. So thanks for raising that, Council Bellinger. In terms of publicity, Absolutely. We were out there on social media today with your support. We've shown in the report that we will always, we seem to be a regular feature on Look North. They've been out several times now with our teams around both COVID compliance work, enforcement work, and just recently the fly tipping. And I've included links in the report where we've done that. So we will maximise publicity, but it's never enough. Is it? It's never enough. We can do more. So I think that's the points that maybe I can probably cover. I'll let Andrew deal with the hard ones if that's okay.
Well, the team are certainly a credit to you, Derek. They're really, really good, and I've got a lot of respect from other people as well. So it was.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for that. I've got Helen on my list. Jenny, are you want to speak now? Are you going to a forum meeting? Jenny, are you there? You're on mute. I think. No. No. I thought I couldn't run these things, but I feel better now. Helen, do you want to ask your question while I'm waiting for?
Yeah, quite a different issue. Well, a lot of things that actually get fly tipped are actually quite reusable. You know, I've seen sort of like children's clothes which from a friend I took home, put through a washing machine and gave to a charity shop because they were really good condition. Things like wood from old, like a lot of Victorian terrace houses, obviously in Calderdale, that other people can use. I don't know, and clearly if we can prevent things going to landfill, it'd be great if we could do it. I don't know if there's anything we can do about that, but it does seem to me that a lot of things, and is there a way we can promote reusing things as well as trying to prevent them being blighted?
Okay, thank you for that. Jenny, are you back in? Are you with us now?
Yes, I am. I'm so sorry. I do apologise. Yes,
Okay,
and I do have an AGM to go to shortly, but so I hope you'll forgive me coming in. But I just wanted to say a couple of thank yous, really. First of all, thank you to Place Scrutiny, because it's been over the years, Place Scrutiny has really actually, you know, focused in on what can we do to try to improve our services, to tackle litter, to tackle environmental blight and everything. And I think it's been an example of where Scrutiny has really kind of added value to what's going on. So that's my first thank you. My second thank you is very much to Andrew and to Derek and to everybody in the team, and to all the people that have to pick up rotten old damp mattresses, as Derek mentioned. You know, it's very easy for people to kind of be critical, but actually there's some terrific work going on. And I'd like to pay tribute to everybody that's been involved in introducing this new system, the new system with enforcement review, because I think it really is starting to add value to it. And I know, funnily enough, I just went on the map to report some fly tipping today, and I was told I didn't have to because there was already a little red dot on the map because somebody else had already reported it, so I didn't have to spend any more time on it. So it's a really good system, and I just think that and all credit to all the staff that have worked on it, and all credit to the members, you know, to elected members, for really, you know, working alongside and helping with this process of trying to kind of educate folks. So just thank you very much anyway. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you very much. Audrey, I think you had a comment.
Yeah, Mike, I think it's really great, and I really like the, you know, sort of getting on, doing the job and giving people a chance, but saying we're going to come back and, you know, enforce later. I have this idea that in Calderdale that we should be giving our residents the option of one or two free bulk collections a year, so that we can avoid that sort of fly tip, or, you know, avoid the waste going into the hands of what's the word? Unscrupulous, that's the word. Unscrupulous waste disposal operatives. Because, you know, if somebody's on a low income, if I haven't got much money and somebody says, I'll get rid of it for you for a tenner, it's a much much better option for me than, and I think they're going to take it down the tip, but maybe they're not, because they just can't be bothered or whatever. So I think that we should be looking, and I would like to make a recommendation. They do it in Manchester. I know it's a bigger authority, but they offer free bulk collection service in Manchester. Their website has also got, can this be reused? So, and it gives links to how something can be recycled, and I think that Helen mentioned it, helping people make it an easy option for them, because quite often people think, oh, I'd like to, but I can't be bothered. But if they were thinking, oh, right, okay, well, it's either do that, I can stick it on there as well. I know it wouldn't be an easy fix, but I definitely think there is some mileage in looking at it, because I think there would be cost savings, and I think it would make everybody feel a little bit more sort of, I don't know, like they were getting something. It wasn't just, I don't know, if Pennine Together Housing get away with not having to pay for a clear up, then it would be quite, I think it would be quite nice for residents to get a bulk lift every year, and not everybody would want it, and it only costs £18.50, Andrew.
Yeah. Andrew, you're dying to answer this question. I can see your enthusiasm in your face too.
I am, and I don't want my answer to sound negative, because it isn't. So it'll start off negative and hopefully turn positive. We did do this some years ago. It predates my involvement in the waste contract, but I did ask exactly the same question as you, Councillor Smith, because it does seem that the arithmetic might work in our favour if we saved money having to clear up fly tipping, if you like, because we were introducing free bulkies. The last time we did it, apparently there were 25,000 requests on the system almost immediately. The big problem that led to was one of capacity, and it then led through to everybody complaining, saying, well, you've said we can have a free bulky collection, but it's been 4 weeks and you still haven't picked it up, type of thing. So I think the first thing we've got to do is make sure we've got capacity in the system to be able to deliver it, because I certainly don't think it's a bad idea. The arithmetic may stack up, as I say, but the worst of all worlds is for us to be seen to be giving something positive to people, and then we don't have the operational capacity to deliver it. The other thing I've got to say is, I know you say it's only £18.50 a time, but that's £18.50 a time that we haven't got. So, if we got, 1,000 requests for that, that's an extra £18,000 that I haven't got in the waste budget, and I would have to find from somewhere else. And that's a member of staff to me, basically, in green spaces and street scene. And, they're precisely the sort of people who do the litter picking and help remove the fly tipping. So I know it's easy to sound like a broken record as an officer, but it does come back to the old resources issue there. But I've got to say, it's not a bad idea. One of the things we have done in the past is we've sort of done, and Derek will remember this, where we've put skips in areas, and we've sort of said to residents, worked with the I don't say I was on the call, but with the neighbourhood community warden team, done a bit of publicity, a bit of door knocking in areas where we know there might be issues, often in more deprived areas, and we just shove a couple of skips in the area for the week and give people the opportunity to use those. The problem we had with that was basically, it's back to the old fly tipping thing. That then meant that we've got a lot of commercial operations who thought, aha, rather than me having to pay for my disposing of what's in the back of my white van, I'll just go along at night and I'll stick it in that skip that the council have helpfully put out on the end of the street. So I don't want to sound negative, as I say, because I think there's a lot in there. The final thing I want to say is to just link this back to Councillor Riveron's question, and I think you referred to it as well, Councillor Smith, about reuse and all that. It's back to the waste hierarchy. You can imagine I'm going to say, we want to minimise, we want to reuse, and only then is it the sort of recycling stuff, and we certainly don't want stuff going to landfill. I think there's an opportunity in the future to address these sort of issues in the review of our waste contract, and I'm conscious that this is, I think, on your agenda for the November meeting. And what I mean by that is, I referred to earlier some of the issues we've had about coordinating the bulky waste collections with, you know, what is basically on-street fly tipping and people just putting stuff outside the houses and whatever. However, given that removing fly tipping and removing bulky waste are very similar operations, at the moment, one is done by an external contractor, which is Suez for bulky waste, and the other is done in-house by us, which is removing the fly tipping. There's got to be some opportunity for thinking about, in the new waste contract, whether we could combine that into an integrated service. And clearly, we'd have to think about, is that service contracted out, or is it something that we could deliver, you know, in-house? And there'd have to be a bit of work done on that. But I think that's a bit of the sort of, you know, light at the end of the tunnel, if you like, of how we might try and resolve some of these problems about getting more things reused, because it won't be Suez disposing of it. You know, we've got an integrated system there. And also, you know, maybe having that sort of capacity to not only deal with legitimate fly tipping, but also give people an opportunity to, you know, to access a bulky waste collection service, maybe at less than or at no charge at all. So there is some opportunity to discuss that, but I think it's more part of that new approach to delivering a waste collection contract, rather than, I wouldn't like to go straight to offering free bulky collections next week.
No, I was going to say, I mean, do you want to make this a recommendation, or do you, when we look at the fly tipping contract, look at the waste contract, we put this down in consideration, like that? You've gone on mute.
I think, yeah, sorry.
Yeah,
I think the points you made, Andrew, I mean, the fact that it's bulk waste is a service that we pay for from Suez, and the fly tipping is something that we pay for through our council tax directly through council. I think that's quite an important distinction, and I sort of get that. But for the next contract, I would really appreciate if we could look at if we could recommend looking at a way of having a bulk waste collection incorporated in it.
I think it's not a bad idea. I mean, my only concern with that would be that people who go at the tip anyway are going to get a carload of stuff and think, well, on this occasion, I'm going to ring up for a freebie, and they won't take it themselves. That's my big worry about it.
But I think, I suppose on that, I did ask about because tips aren't accessible for people who don't have cars. So instantly you've got a service that is universal that isn't universal. And I think, Andrew, you said 17,000 households don't have, are noted as not having cars, which would mean maybe we just give households that don't have cars a free bulk waste collection. But then if you've only got a little car and you can't get a single bed in it, then, you know, it's sort of, so I think, and I take your point about everybody wanting it at once, but I think we'd have to market it in a way that, you know, you will get one a year. So, I mean, I would probably never use it, but I think a lot of people, if they thought they were getting a sofa, they book it up, probably get about 6 weeks notice or something. And I think, you know, they'd have to work around it, I suppose.
Well, shall we draw up a formal recommendation then? Shall we do that and then vote on it? And the next time we do the budget, we look at a free collection for everybody, or once a year. Helen?
Yeah, I'd happily support that, but I don't know if we could get in the idea about reuse as well, or maybe that needs to be a second resolution. But I think it, you know, if there is a way that we could look at promoting reuse as well as the bulky waste, I don't know.
Yeah, well, possibly we could do that maybe as a separate item. Or Andrew?
Yeah.
Yeah, just a quick one on that, Councillor River. I mean, I think what we can do, I mean, as you know, Suez have the reuse shop down at Brighouse. I'll certainly pick this point up with Suez and say, look, can you make every effort, which is in their interest anyway, because you know they get income from that, to make sure that, you know, you really are quite assiduous in looking at what items you pick up through the bulky collections that could be reused, are indeed reused, and go either through the shop or through some other process of them being, you know, offered to local voluntary organisations or whatever. So I think I can probably pick that one up operationally in the short term.
Mike, do you need just agree wording, or are you happy to just put that together?
Yeah, if Chair, if the board agrees a recommendation, then what I would suggest is that Fazana or myself write a brief report saying what your recommendation is to Cabinet, and if you like, asking Cabinet to consider it when they put their draft budget proposals together. And that way, if you wish to do that as a board, we can move that into the budget process before January, which is normally when you come in and talk about budget issues, and that gives Cabinet the opportunity to think about it and to think about the points that Andrew's made to you as well.
Audrey, do you want to propose that formally? What Mike's just said? Do you want to repeat it all, but just
What Mike just said, I propose formally.
And Guy, you seconded that.
I'm happy to say.
Oh, Helen, you're seconding it. Okay, thank you. Just one last question from me, really, about.
You're going to have to.
What? Pardon?
You'll have to vote on that at some stage.
Did we vote on it? I beg your pardon. Sorry, can we vote on that, please? Anybody against? It's easier.
Yeah, definitely, Chair. I think it's a ludicrous idea, personally. I really do. We don't have the resources to manage that.
Well, no, I accept that. I accept there's probably a resource problem. All we're doing, though, is asking, really, the Cabinet to look at it. We're not actually recommending that we do it. It's just for consideration, that's all. Because we have to crunch the numbers, won't they, and say, well, it'll cost us £18.50 times whatever. And what's it cost us to clean up fly tipping? So I'm not suggesting that all we're doing is asking them to consider it, not necessarily to implement it. Am I right with that? Yeah. Guy, you're on mute, Guy. You're on mute.
Yeah, just like to say, yes, I'm in favour of that. I've got to leave in 2 minutes, so if you can register my vote for it, what you propose, then that would be good.
Yeah, but I need to register. Councillor Bellinger's against. Anybody else against? Before. I can't see everybody. It looks like the panel, apart from Paul, is for it. So can we make a note of that, please? And I just got one, just about.
Councillor Young had his hand up there. Was that for or against, Councillor Young?
It was against.
Oh, you were against, Dave. Sorry, I didn't hear you say so. It's a bit easier in real life, isn't it? So that's 2 of you against.
And Councillor Clark's just come in and missed the conversation. So
I have my many apologies. So sorry. I'll explain later.
Councillor Caffrey, can I just suggest you do those in favour and those against, so we've actually got a
right. Okay. Those in favour of the proposal. 1.
Sorry, I don't know. What are we doing?
Well, we voted on your recommendation. That.
All right. Okay.
But
were you going to tell Steph what the recommendation was?
Please do.
Basically, we're recommending that we get a free bulk. That we're recommending that Cabinet look. Well, not Cabinet, but that when we're doing the review on the new sewers contract, that Mike, you do it.
I think the recommend.
Hi, sorry, Chair Mike. Because Councillor Clark has just joined the meeting, I'm not sure that she's in a position to actually vote on anything because she's not been involved in any of the discussions. So from my perspective of Clark, I would ask Councillor Clark to abstain from this vote.
I'll abstain, but I'd like to know what it's about.
So Chair, if I may, Councillor Smith has proposed that Cabinet be asked to consider, as part of the budget process for next year, whether the feasibility of introducing one free bulky waste collection for residents, and we can expand on that in a little report with the reasoning. But that would be the recommendation I believe that Councillor Smith is making.
Right, so can we vote again, please? Those eligible to vote. Who's in favour of the recommendation?
Sorry, Chair, can I just raise a...
Ellen, you're breaking up. I can't hear you.
I know, I'm sorry, I'm having technical problems. I thought we were looking at it in terms of the next the next waste contract when the sewers contract comes up for renewal. But anyway.
Sorry, I can't hear you now. Did you finish that, Helen?
Sure.
Yeah, I think we missed out the bit about the waste contract coming up for renewal in the resolution. That was the hear me because I'm
right. Okay. So the resolution is that we ask the Cabinet to look at free bulky collections when they are looking at the waste contract, or do you want it when they are looking at the budget? It's your call, Audrey. It's your proposal.
Well, I don't really know. I would have suggested when we're looking at the next contract, I suppose, but it does come within budget as well, doesn't it? Because it's weighing it up. It's to look at whether or not it's cheaper to pick up fly tipping or do bulk waste.
Mike, you got your hand up, Mike, for some guidance here.
I mean, if given that you have got the waste, you know, as Andrew's pointed out, you have got the waste contract on the agenda for the next month's meeting. Perhaps between now and then, Councillor Smith and Fazana and myself can perhaps work up a little additional report to put into that process, so that we help we put it on in writing basically, so that the ideas are there and the officers and the cabinet member are able to respond in that discussion. And at the end of that discussion next month, you can choose as a board to make any recommendation to cabinet you wish.
Well, it's up to you, Audrey. I think that's probably more appropriate to do it while we're talking about the waste.
Yeah, I agree.
Right. So can I suggest that you re-propose this next time at the next place meeting when you talk about the waste contract?
I think that's a good idea.
Okay. Right. Everybody all right with that? Right. Then you can have we can have a fuller debate about it if you want.
Yeah, I agree on that one.
It might be a bit easier to look at the pros and cons of it, because you know there are some genuine concerns about the financial viability of it. I was just going to ask you just a quickie on unauthorised. We talked about White Van Man with his £5 tip for dumping. Do we actually do any intelligence, say, on social media and Facebook? I mean, you see plenty of these people advertising garden clearances and flat clearances. Do we actually monitor all these people?
So, Councillor Caffrey, I'd like to be able to say, yes, we do it all the time, but again, that's a resource issue. There is so much opportunity out there. One of the things that we ask though is the Environment Agency have got a key role in this. They are the ones who issue permits in terms of waste trade, which is what we're talking about. So people can come to your house, they can collect your waste, but they must be a registered waste trader. There is a fee to pay for that. That's permitted by the EA. So in some ways, they've got the responsibility. That's not to say that we don't work collaborative with them. And if you recall, again, before the pandemic, and I'm sorry if I sound like an old record when I keep talking about this, is we were doing these spot checks on the road. So we were doing spot checks on the road where we were pulling vehicles over with the support of the police, because we need the police, because only the police have got the powers to pull vehicles over in those circumstances. And then we were checking anybody who looked like they were a waste trader. And I'm sure anybody who drives on the roads will be able to identify who we're talking about. So we pulled them over. And actually, as a result of that, we identified several offences. However, we are not the responsible authority, so we have to pass that information onto the EA. So again, that is a programme of activity that we certainly will start again. But in terms of gathering intelligence, certainly when we know we've got somebody of interest, or we know we've got an issue in the locality, and I think the prosecution that we had recently is evidence of that, is we will do our due diligence. But I'm afraid we don't have the evidence gathering that really we would like. And again, that's purely down to resources. But we will pick up on any intelligence that we get from local communities and work with the EA.
So if somebody's fly tipping, who's guilty? The household, if I'm giving £5, or the person who's doing it?
Yeah, so I think there's several offences there, but the person who hands actually, if you ask somebody to come and take some waste away, technically you commit an offence if you do not do your due diligence and identify that this person is a registered trade waste carrier. So they've got to be permitted by the EA to carry that waste away. You commit an offence if you don't do your due diligence. So, I mean, how many times have we gone on, say, websites or ordered something from a company and they've said to us, oh, we can take away your appliance and it'll cost you £15. Technically, you need to ensure that that person who's taking that appliance away is a waste trader. If they then collect it and they do not dispose of it in line with their permit, in other words, at a recognised waste trade centre, they then commit an offence of fly tipping. So you can see there is within one incident, there's several offences being committed.
Right, okay, thank you for that.
Sorry,
Steph.
just before, Chair, can I just say a huge thanks to Councillor Bellinger and Councillor Clark who went out with our officers today. The feedback I got from the officers is that I think it was mutually rewarding on both sides. So just like to thank them for working with us on that and making it happen in really quick time.
That's very good timing, Derek, because I think Steph wants a quick word about this morning as a final statement. Is that right? Did you want to speak? You're on mute.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, it was a really interesting morning. I must say, what we're talking about now, we had a couple of the fly tips that we visited did have addresses and names on them. That doesn't necessarily mean that that person is the one who's guilty of dumping it. It could be just the one who's paid someone else to dump it. However, Jamie, one of the people who showed us around, was saying that they have fined the person who has hired someone else to dump it, and it can be quite distressing because it could be somebody who's perfectly innocent ask that person to dump everything. They expect it to go to the recycling centre or the household waste centre. So it was really rewarding, I thought. I think the only thing was there's just one guy who's sort of collecting all this stuff. We could probably do with another one to help, especially when it's things like sofas on the side of the road. It was really rewarding. I'm sure Councillor Bellinger has already explained what a day we had.
I have, Steph, yeah, it was really
yeah.
Well,
so I won't say a great deal, but thank you very much for letting us take part in that.
Thanks for that comment. Right, thanks everybody. Thanks especially to Derek and Andrew. You took that very well. I mean, it's a multi-subject, this, isn't it? And it's not easy to deal with. There's no hard and fast answers either, really. Apart from, getting hold of these people when they're doing it, and that's not easy. So thanks everyone now. We'll just move on to the work programme, I think, if we could. Zena?
It's me, I think, Chair.
Oh, is it you? Sorry, mate.
Just one additional item to propose that is added to the work programme for next month. We've had an ombudsman's report into a complaint from a resident, which actually relates to noise and to waste. And the ombudsman has reported today, I believe, the report's been published, and the ombudsman has asked the council to do several things, one of which is to discuss their report at a formal meeting. And the formal meeting that it should be discussed at is your meeting at the next meeting. So we will add that to the agenda, and you'll get the report from the ombudsman with your papers for the next meeting. So that's the only thing to say about the work programme, Chair.
Thank you, and we'll see you if Andrew's still there. We'll see you again, Andrew, probably. It's probably gone. Right.
Well, I'm still here, Chair. You will indeed.
Yes. You seem to copy with these things, don't you? So is everybody okay with the work programme? Anything else that anyone wants to add on to it?
Councillor Bellinger has raised his hand, Chair.
Yeah.
Has he?
Yeah, Chair, it's just regarding the email that I sent you and Mike during the week with regards just getting more information. And I think if Andrew Pitts is still here, actually, good, with regards the contract we have with Suez and the recent issues that we're actually having as well, where we're not getting the service level agreement that's been agreed with Suez in the past. So we're still paying Suez for a service that they're not fulfilling due to the lack of drivers and other issues as well. Fair enough, there are issues that's out of everybody's control, but at the end of the day, if we're still paying that full amount for that service that we're not receiving, then I think that's something that we need to establish, really. Whether it's something that can be looked at scrutiny, or whether it's something that Andrew can look into and come back to us with beforehand. And I mean, we're really appreciative of the information that Andrew does give us with regards the issues around recycling and miscollections and stuff. But I think it's something we need to find out if Suez, what they're doing to replenish their the resources with regards drivers, and obviously the financial agreement between us and them. You know, if there's anything that we can recover back from them if we're not getting that service that's been agreed in that contract.
We're actually on the work programme now, Andrew, so you don't have to answer that. But you can if you want.
Very quickly. We are in discussion with Suez, and the basis of that discussion is a legal discussion. So I don't particularly want to go into it, not because I want to keep anything from members, but because I'm not a lawyer and I'd probably say something that wasn't right. But the essence of that is basically what you said, Councillor Bellinger. You know, we are saying to Suez, look, hang on a minute, you know, you're not fulfilling the terms and conditions of your contract. They are pushing back with other things, which involve things like within contracts, if there are unforeseen circumstances happen, one of which can be a change in laws, the contractor is entitled to put a claim into the client for extra money to cover that circumstance. And I'm in danger of getting into detail now, but essentially that's what Suez is saying. They're saying their retort to us is, well, look, there are things that have happened, ranging from the new IR35 stuff that means, you know, it's becoming harder to get agency drivers and stuff like that.
Can I just interrupt you? Sorry, Andrew, can I just interrupt you? Really sorry. But I've noticed we're still live and we don't have legal representation, do we? Ian Hughes is not with us. So I'm just cautious about what you might be saying now.
Okay, I'll be even more circumspect than I was trying to be then, and just leave it at the fact that we are in discussions that will be of a legal nature as to how we can both, you know, make sure that we fulfil our respective parts of the bargain, which is what a contract is at the end of the day. And I guess this will crop up again at your next meeting, Councillor Caffrey, anyway. So
well, it will.
We'll probably cover it in more detail then.
I didn't need the full explanation, but no, that's fine. Somebody else had the hand a minute ago. I don't know about Audrey. Sorry, about put something in the work plan.
Yeah, it's just a query. We said that we were moving the housing strategy scrutiny item, didn't we? Because Heidi couldn't make the meeting. But does that mean that we won't see it prior to it going to full council? We won't see it at scrutiny prior to full council, or have I got the dates muddled up?
Social house review, you mean? She couldn't make the 4th. Is that what you said?
No, it was the whole. Didn't we have Heidi down to come in and do a housing review?
We did on the 4th of November. It's
Chair.
It's on for next times.
Councillor Smith is correct. Is that Heidi is not able to attend that meeting. So yes, the consequence is that unless we get someone else to come and present that item in November, then it will be after the council meeting, which I believe is at the end of November. And the referral from cabinet was to council, the housing strategy. I'm not sure whether it's up to members, I guess. Full council is an opportunity for all members to discuss the housing strategy. What you can do at scrutiny in December is discuss how the housing strategy is going to be taken forward and implemented.
Well, can it be done by anybody but Heidi? I don't know. I mean, or do you want to shift it all together to, I don't know, to when's the next opportunity? December maybe.
As Councillor Smith says, we can do it in December, but it will be after the strategy is agreed. By council.
Well, we don't have a choice, do we? We either do it on the 4th without Heidi, or we'll leave it till December after it's, you know. So that's
yeah. I mean,
that's the deal to go.
Yeah, I mean, there's enough items, Chair, on there. There's 3 items already besides that for the 4th.
Well, I'm happy to lose one if we're all right about timing. What's everybody think?
Yeah.
Um,
crime figures might take up some time with a decent discussion on that.
Right. Okay.
Capital programme.
Well, you brought it up already, so are you happy if it goes to 9th of December?
Yeah, I just wondered what the normal way of things were, and I wondered if there was any value of doing it before it goes to full, scrutinising a cabinet decision before it goes to full council, or whether that's not important. I'm sorry, I'm still getting my head around which order things go in, so it's really down to what you think is most important.
Well, I don't know, Mike. What do you think? I mean, I'm relaxed about either way, really.
But my advice, Chair, to the board would be that actually full council is an opportunity, if you like, for every member to scrutinise what the strategy includes, and full council will do what it will. Actually, how the strategy is taken forward is perhaps more of the thing for scrutiny, because decision about strategies is a council matter, but the implementation of them is for you to scrutinise. So I don't think you lose anything by discussing it in December rather than November.
So, are you all right with that, Audrey?
Yeah, fine.
Are we all right with that? No dissenters? Okay, we'll shift it, Mike, can we? To the month after. Okay. Actually, it's do us a favour because there's quite a lot on there, isn't there? So it might be better to give it more time.
Some meaty items on there, aren't there? So
yeah, there is. That could exceed my 12 maximum, couldn't it? Right, okay. Anything else? Are you okay with that? Right, well, thanks everybody. But Joe, are you signalling, Dave? Are you playing with your... Oh, he's not signalling. Well, thanks everybody, and quite a good, interesting meeting. Lots of questions.